Hello, everyone at the HR Innovation and Future of Work sessions. Thank you so much for joining us for this breakout. We have a very global group, which is very exciting. And we're going to be talking about Agile in the workplace and what that really means, how you can start applying it, how to even start thinking about it without being overwhelmed. So first, we're going to let our panelists introduce themselves. So Wayne, why don't we start with you? No particular order.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm an Agile HR coach. I live at the intersection of Agile practices and using leadership strategies. It's kind of a unique blend. I started out as a HR practitioner for many years and then had a slight diversion developing software for IBM for about 5 years. And at the time, I saw that the integration of Agile needs good leadership. And so my focus is around how do you combine those in a way that makes the most sense. And so I'm teaching at the University of Pennsylvania organizational dynamics course, and I work with clients and organizations. I'm just really passionate around helping HR adapt some Agile principles to be more effective and get better results.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Wayne. Jeanette, let's go to you next.
Hi everyone. I'm actually I'm dialing from New Zealand, so I'm in Auckland, in New Zealand. You tell from my accent, I'm British. I have worked in, lived in Russia, in the US, in the UK, in the Netherlands. So I'm generally, my job is a global people officer or global CHRO. I'm passionate about helping companies to renovate themselves to enable them to be ready for future. Future is not, we just heard in the latest tech session that we've in Hacking HR. It's it's something that one of the things I really focus on is working with executive teams to help them to change their mindset and lead by example in terms of transforming organizations to agile ways of working. So, my particular specialism is in legacy organizations that didn't grow up as agile, to transform from the inside.
All right, excellent. And Jeanette, a couple of people are mentioning, and I noticed it as well, if there's any way you can get a little closer to the mic, if it's possible, it's a little warbly sometimes to hear you.
Okay.
So just as a heads up. Bill, let's go to you next.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everybody from Northern New Jersey. Even though I speak globally, I've tried to lose my accent. If you catch me, I originally grew up in Long Island, so I say caw and water and caw. I try not to do that when I'm speaking. But I've been working in organizational change and transformation and consulting with large and mid-sized clients for over 35 years. And my specialty is now digital transformation. How do we translate all the people issues that are going on as we create new 21st century companies? And the nickname Mr. Simplicity stuck. That was my first of 9 books, Simplicity. So welcome, everybody. I'm looking forward to chatting with all of you.
Thank you, Bill. And Pia-Maria, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pia-Maria. I'm currently in Lagos in Nigeria on the West African coast. Here with Evan Leaborn, actually, from Melbourne. We are attending a business agility conference. The business agility has come to Africa as well. It's amazing. I am the founder and inspiration director of Agile People, which is the global movement nowadays, which I'm trying to improve. We are together trying to improve the world for all the people working in different kinds of organizations by increasing happiness and performance with the help of agile values and agile principles and the mindset and more the soft side, because I work with Agile HR and Agile leadership, and I've done so since 2012 when I did my first Agile HR course. And I wrote a book in 2017 called Agile People, and I also coach companies like IKEA, H&M, Scania, some Norwegian companies. I've been working with lots of different companies across the world trying to increase agile HR and agile leadership principles and values. So,
excellent.
yeah,
Thank you so
me.
much. And I'm Karen Weeks. I am currently the VP of People at Ordergroove, which is a small tech startup that works with retailers and brands on building recurring revenue programs. So subscriptions, reorder, monthly boxes, whatever that may look like. I have come to the HR Agile world in a very sort of exploratory way, in the sense of, as working for tech companies, obviously I knew the concept of Agile and was trying to think about how I could work more in that kind of style. Without I haven't gone down the coaching or any of the more formal framework, but I think that's going to be part of the conversation today, is how can we start to think more in an agile way and bring agility to our workforce, whether that's with a lowercase a or with a capital A, and we do it more in a formalized way as well. So a couple of other things just to kind of call out as we dive into some of these questions. So first of all, as everyone saw from the chat, you can chat on the right side of your screen. We'll try to include some of the questions as we can. And if we have time at the end, I'll try to reserve some time for some questions that we didn't get to. Definitely will not be perfect. So please reach out to folks on LinkedIn if you want to specifically ask some follow-up questions there as well. Really the goal for this session, we did a pre-kickoff, so peek behind the curtains. We did a kickoff beforehand. And a couple of things that we really hope you're walking away from is, how can HR be more agile and support that mindset shift from today's environment to be thinking more about continuous change versus like, oh, we did this thing, we checked the box and we move on. It's much more of an organic, ongoing change. So how can we help people through that? How can you sort of change your sphere of influence? So maybe it's, you can change yourself, you can change your team, or you can change your organization. And what does that look like? And then how can we help leaders adapt a more agile way of working? So we can say it's great and say it's awesome, but if it's not changing within the culture of the company, then you're only going to get so far. So we're going to hopefully talk about that. So those are some of the thoughts that we initially had. Like I said, definitely share your thoughts as you go. So one thing I want to kick off with is, as I mentioned, Agile can be little a, big A. It can be intimidating to some folks. Pia-Maria, especially since you wrote the book on what this means on the HR side, would you be willing to sort of share your point of view on what's a really simple way to define Agile when it comes to the way people are working and creating culture?
Defining it.
Or how do you talk about it?
How do I talk about it? Well, I'll talk about it in terms of tools, methods that increases the principles and values. So, I mean, the purpose is really to create this agile culture where everybody's nice to each other. We put people first. We talk about engagement, performance, happiness, and all these things. And we make it possible for people to perform optimally in organizations. So, and HR are the people, so they should be in the driver's seat when it comes to people concerns and everything that moves around what people need and what they like and how they should be working. And to give freedom, I think it's the most important thing for people to decide about how to work, about what to work on. And I think this to continually ask these questions, are you in the right place right now? Are you doing the work you love to do every day? Becomes really important in Agile, because we are putting people in the center. We are talking about intrinsic motivation, and it's a big thing to see this happen in a company where when people kind of come alive instead of being dead, they come alive. I say, when you start to talking about Agile and using these tools and methods to really, the purpose is to increase the principles. And as we all know, Agile is not a recipe for success, but it releases a lot of things. And depending on how you do it, because you can do it in so many different ways. Depending on how you do it, you get different results, and it takes different times, and it's really a huge shift in the way we think and work, and everything, I would say, changes in an Agile company. Nothing is the same anymore. So it's a total shift from traditional values and everything. changes. It's amazing when you see that.
Yeah, and
happening.
I think part of what you're describing, some of that, the pieces of the shift and how it can really be the mindset for folks that aren't every day. People hear that?
No, I don't hear what you're saying.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, they're saying now it's me.
I can hear you okay now.
All right. Hopefully it will go away.
Sounds
Sounds like the vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. You guys, we have not had good luck with audio so far today. So
We're agile. We'll work through it. So.
All right, let's see. It sounds like interference almost.
Okay, now.
All right, we'll keep going and see what happens. So we were just talking about sort of the it can be intimidating that some people feel. So does anyone else, especially as you've been coaching other people into making a change into working in a more agile way, what are something that you've seen people be nervous about as you coach folks?
Yeah, well, I guess, and I think one of the speakers is saying maybe we should be on mute or not talking, I guess, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You know, it's a big change. You're asking people to, especially those who've been very successful, to change the way they do work, right? And then people don't change when they don't really feel a need. And so I was talking to some people, I guess at Unilever and other companies, and they were talking about, you know, they need to get managers to be more agile in their thinking and practices. And, you know, these are managers who've been very successful and they've achieved results and they don't really see the need, quite frankly. And so, but again, you know, typically we respond when it's too late, when things have happened and we haven't prepared for it. And so that's why it's important to at least be thinking about agile and creating an agile workplace before you really need it. And with constant change, even the most successful companies with biggest market share, you know, they're primed to be disrupted by someone else coming along. And so it's hard to make that case, but it's important, you know, that we need to do things differently. And, you know, you have to kind of show them through pilot programs and things like that, how that's happened, how it works.
It's a great point. I think, especially as you can sort of see what the change can impact an organization, I think that goes a long way. Any other thoughts from other folks on the panel before we move to the next question?
One of the points. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeanette.
We're just watching why the microphones are not good. But sorry. But
You want to add something?
I just think that Agile is, you know, people kind of criticize it when they don't know about it, and there's a fear factor around Agile. But it is, you know, as Pia-Maria said, it's the most amazing thing when you energize and empower people to collaborate together and work together cross-functionally to do things much more quickly and much more customer focused than they maybe would have done in a traditional model. So I think that's really just what I want to say. It's a very disciplined model. It's a very disciplined way of working. It's a very accountable way of working. But it really does transform the organization because things are totally customer centric. Everything's about the customer, and that's what you're delivering. And I think that's, you know, when we look at HR and Agile, we've got to become more people centric in terms of the experience that people have of work and the way that they work. We've got to be much more centric on that, much more about can we attract the right people, because talented people want to work in a faster and more customer focused way, involving the customer in every step of the way. How do we like to work? How do we want to work? And what are we going to deliver to our customer? That's what Agile brings to an organization. It's that speed to customer that transforms the way people feel about their jobs, because they're actually delivering something that people want.
Jeanette, you say it's very customer focused. That seems like a no-brainer. Who would resist that? Where are the pockets of resistance and why? Why do people resist being so customer focused?
Well, and I think you know, people would always, oh, sorry, Well, I think people would always say that they are customer focused, but I think the fear of changing the way that you work is really the challenge that we have with moving to Agile, particularly for legacy organizations. Just the fear factor of, I don't know how to be. I don't want to give up my corner office. I don't want to be one of the team doing something. I want to tell people what to do. It's more of a fear factor that we need to go over.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to work with Agile. If you compare with traditional, you have your checklist, you have your status reports, you have your systems and processes and methods and tools, and your breakdown goes from above just down. You know, it's really easy. But Agile is difficult because it's about knowing people, it's about understanding people, and it's about making them go in the direction that you want them to go because they want to go in that direction. And this is the big difference. You need to inspire and motivate people, and people are difficult. That's why it's so threatening. That's why people are so scared. I don't know how to do that as a regular manager. Maybe I'm an Excel manager. I'm an engineer, you know. I don't know people. I have no competence in this area. So of course they are scared. Middle management in particular are really, really scared because they are old engineers doing their work really well, but they don't know people and they don't know how to lead for real. Of course. I mean, it's no wonder they're scared. Or what do you say, Wayne?
Again, it's my view is, you know, people don't like to change, but the reality is they have to. And you know, it's very hard getting, you know, unless you're going out of business. If you look at the oil companies 10 years ago, right? They were going out of business and they had to change, and so they did, right? But absence of that, you know, a manager who's been very successful will say to you, I'm doing fine. I don't really need to change. I mean, I got everything right people. I'm doing things well, and not understanding there's an Uber or there's a Lyft or there's an Airbnb coming their way, or Karen's company, you know, really coming and disrupt their industry. And I think it's tough, but you know, it's critical. I think that we need to really be thinking about the future and at least working on it. And I think one of the things we could do with Agile, I often recommend, is some kind of pilot program where you can actually demonstrate to a leader who's doing really well, can do better. You know, and it's not hard to do that. It's like the movie Jerry Maguire, Show Me the Money. It's show me the proof that Agile works. I'm not going to yell, show me the money. I'm not a good Cuba Gooding is, but show me the proof. And I think you can do that. You know, getting a pilot project and working with them and showing how things get done. You get better results more quickly. Quality's better. People are engaged. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but I think they have to see it. You have to feel it, you know, before they can really change and adopt to it.
What's fascinating to me as I listen to our panel, Agile is very focused on now, and it's a very 2020 approach. And yet I'm hearing the same conversation from our panel as I've heard in organizational change for 10, 20, now 30 years. It's about fear. It's about freeing people. It's about focusing on the people. It's fascinating to me to hear, you know, the topic of Agile, which has a specific methodology and a way of approaching. It's very similar to what I've been practicing in organizational change for over 3 decades. And the same challenges, they still persist.
Of course. People are people, and they are going to continue to be people, just like 30 years ago. They don't change that much, actually. People are who they are, and they are different, and they are amazing and fantastic, and have all sorts of, you know, flaws. And we can't predict what people will do. We cannot predict behavior, and we cannot control them, and that's the big issue. We cannot control. And what can we do? We can make it easy, right, to behave in the right ways, to get new habits and to do the things that we know work, so create those conditions. But a lot more is difficult to do. The conditions in the environment, the system, you know, shape the system, don't manage people, etc. And get to know people on a deeper level, know them really deeply, understand them, talk to them like people. Don't, you know, be positive, smile. It's not that difficult.
There's actually beings that we work with every single day. Treat them as humans first,
Exactly.
and the other things
They are
will
not
follow.
machines, right? They are not machines.
Yeah. No, Pia,
We're focusing, and I know I raised the fear factor. I think that's more about legacy organizations and executive teams and middle managers in those older organizations that didn't grow up as Agile. I think when you look at the organizations that have grown up Agile, and the tech companies, big tech companies, the Silicon Valleys and the various tech centers around the world, it's natural. It's just natural to be Agile, and just the very statement being Agile, not doing Agile. It's about a mindset. It's a mindset shift how you put together speed with all equal accountability in teams for getting things done for customers. So there isn't a fear factor in Agile organizations. It's the transition of older organizations so that they don't become complete dinosaurs and die and leave the world when they could have changed and been great.
Yeah. It's picking up on what Pia said. You really can't manage people. You have to influence them. I think, especially nowadays, they have choices. They can show up. They can either buy in or opt in or not even, have care. And I think it's tough in an environment where you have self-directed teams and self-organized teams and servant leaders where a lot of managers aren't comfortable with that. They're comfortable with kind of being in control. We had a speaker at one of our consortium events from ING, Martin Van Beek, who I'm sure Pia and other people may know, done a phenomenal job of transforming that organization. And he said his job is the managers in the middle who really have to give up control, who, aren't used to that. But, Agile is about getting things done more quickly, but it's about influencing. You have to kind of shift all our management development programs in many ways are outdated, right? They're command and control, and now it's more influencing. And since we have more networks than hierarchies in organizations, how you manage a hierarchy is way different than how you manage a network. And so that's one of the challenges I think we face in HR. We haven't really kept up with those internal practices that facilitate an Agile thinking. And I think that's a lot of times where they go wrong because we don't have an infrastructure in people that we manage people that is conducive to Agile.
Yeah. And we need to, of course, go from these pyramids to flatter structures. And if you create the structures where people are free to be who they want to be instead of need to be, when you remove budgets, when you remove fixed performance targets, rewards, and bonuses, and those things, then you remove the limiting structures, right? Because these structures are limiting us. And as long as we keep them up, as long as we work with resource optimization on departments instead of flow optimization of value, it will continue to work in the old traditional way because people will be measured on the wrong things. And what I think many companies don't understand is that they need to remove those limiting structures first before they add the more supporting, Kanban boards and Scrum and stuff like that, because otherwise they come in conflict with each other. The old traditional structures with budgets and all those fixed targets on department level broken down, financial targets, come in conflict with the new structures that we are trying to implement, and then then it doesn't move forward. Instead, Agile gets blamed for we tried that because there was a messy situation going on. If you don't, then if you aren't persistent, then when you're in the change always happens like this. You come here, you go down, and then kind of turns here. Here, down here, you need to be very persistent before you start going up. Because if you give up down there, then you did it for nothing, and you will never reap the benefits.
So HR sort of has two different pieces of this, right? We can be working in a more agile way, and we can help influence others to do the same and change the broader culture. I'm Bill. I'm going to tee you up here, and you can pick which part of the way HR can work in a more agile way, both literally how we work or how we can help set the culture and create some measurements to help guide the culture. I'll let you choose, and then I'll send the other question across to one of our other panelists.
You know where I'm going with this because we've talked about this before. Gandhi, be the change you want to see. Overall, and I've researched to back this up, HR absolutely sucks at being agile. HR is one of the biggest problems itself as an institution. And Pia-Maria was talking about being, she didn't use these words, but people first. Recent research I did with Ultimate Software said that HR really needs to transform itself. We went from personnel to HR, and the most important thing in HR in the last few decades is have a seat at the table. It was being strategic. It was being a business partner. Well, what we've done, the pendulum has swung so far to be focused on business needs and be a business partner that we're completely missing out on being the people first advocate. If HR really wants to be agile, it really needs to be the person or the group, the function that is standing up for people and saying, no, we have to do this differently, especially as we move into the era of AI, because what's happening, AI and machine learning, we're not all going to be replaced by robots, but robots will be our bosses. More and more organizations are institutionalizing analytics to measure and track and make people perform every day. And we need a people advocate there. So that's HR itself needs to be the leader in being agile. And my personal opinion, based on all the research I've done, HR absolutely sucks at doing this.
Yeah.
So I've got more, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, I believe you're completely right about that. HR has abandoned the people to become the perfect management partner instead. So they are not responding to the people. They're only responding to managers and the leadership teams. And they're working for the leadership teams, not for the people, which I think needs to change, obviously. HR needs to be there for all the people. They need to be coaches for the people. They need to be agile people coaches. As I talk about always this new role that I see emerging from HR and from leadership. They come together. It's actually, in the future, I think it's the same role. It's about supporting people to be happy and perform. And it's the agile people coach who needs deep people skills and to be there and help build the structures of the organization, the culture of the organization, be a team leader, be a personal leader, an individual development partner when it's needed, a coach. Nobody wants to be managed, but everybody wants to coach.
Yeah.
So this is what we need and want for the future. Instead of managers, it's going to be coaches. All of us.
I would like to add a point of view here. I think that there's great generalization. I like the positive comments, and I think it's probably right at the majority of people, maybe, I don't know. But I do think that there are amazing examples where the people function is actually driving a really progressive agenda and is highly strategic and is working hand in hand with the business to provide great people experience. And I'll give an example of that. I just worked for a business in New Zealand, the biggest telco in New Zealand, where the chief people officer, the group HRD, actually drove an entire transformation of the business. He's an amazing person who has great vision, inspired the entire board and the exec team to transform the business in the right way. Now, it's a messy business to transform your organization. We all know that. There are lots and lots of ups and downs. But, they've just posted their earnings statement, and they've got better earnings since they've transformed agile ways of working the entire organization in the past 3 years. So, I think that there are amazing examples of people out there, and I'll shout out to Joe McCollum, great people who drive the agenda in the right way that is strategic, commercially viable, bang on track, and is also looking out for people and how they are experiencing work.
Actually, literally just led a lunch and learn at my company on Monday around development, specifically in a startup, because it's not always obvious where your next box is. For some people, that's super exciting. So I wanted to kind of talk through that a little bit more, and I kind of did a little plug at the end around, well, I hope people see me as really approachable. If people do come in with a thinking that I'm there for management, or I'm there for the company, or I'm there for whatever other than the broader team, I'm actually not doing my job, because the way my company will be successful is if we hit our business goals, build an amazing team, because the team is the one that actually gets to those goals. So if I'm only working with managers, I'm only working with leaders, or I'm protecting them, or whatever bad thing, and I'm not thinking about the broader team, then our business is not going to be successful, move as fast, hit our goals, avoid competition, like all those things that the business actually cares about. You need everybody to have the right people on board, living the right culture, living the values. And so I think when you think about coaching, specifically HR folks first, to sort of do their own mindset shift. That's hard to say. How can we help them sort of start to see that value? So we talked earlier about, showing the value instead of showing me money. Wayne, how can you help show the value with the HR team, who can then help influence the rest of the culture?
Yeah. Well, I think, most HR, I work with a lot of HR leaders and younger ones in mid-career, and they all want to do better, but they're constrained by the sheer volume of work that comes their way, right? There's less people with more to do. The technology sucks. It wasn't implemented properly. And so, they're overwhelmed. And I think, but they're interested until a point. And so I think it's really up to the CHRO, the leader, the CEO, to carve out some time. If you look at ING as an example, their CHRO, CEO committed, we're going to do this, and it's going to happen, right? And so it happens. And so, and if you look at organizations, typically HR supporting an IT function, you'll probably have more of an alignment with Agile, because IT is Agile and you're supporting a client. And so that's often a good place to start, I recommend. If you're an IT HR business partner, is doing some of the Agile principles and working with teams, that's one way to start. I think it's really just a pilot project. It's just getting started. It's really someone, leadership, carving out some time with a sponsor to really build some Agile practices by, instead of having large teams that meet every 2 weeks to get nothing done, having small 10-minute teams every day where you ask 3 questions and you solve problems right away. And I don't think you need to do, it's not like you're not fully Agile like being pregnant. I think you can use pieces of it that can really help. The example, meetings. Meetings are a disaster in most companies, right? It's like worse than root canal in some ways. At least with root canal, when you get it fixed, the pain goes away. But if you're constantly in meetings where you're getting nothing done, you're getting frustrated, you're losing energy, it's terrible. So Agile looks at that problem and says, instead of big meetings that don't accomplish much, let's do small incremental meetings every day where we identify problems. And so that's relatively easy to try in an organization. And so if you were a solo practitioner, business partner in an organization, you're frustrated, try to look at the way you meet. Try to, read up a little bit on Agile, talk to any of us on this call, and do some pilot programs around small pieces of it and see what happens. And as you start to sustain some successes, you'll feel better about yourself. You get other people on board and you'll be able to grow. It's an iterative process. You're not going to change companies overnight. You're going to do a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time until it scales and create epidemic. That's how I would focus on it.
Yeah,
the
sounds
Agile
like
way.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. I just wanted to say that some people say that organizations develop in the direction that you ask the questions. So if you ask certain questions, the the organization will develop in that question. So it's about starting asking those questions, and a good place to start, like Bill said, is with yourself, because everybody has a circle of influence. It may be very small from the beginning, but it can grow. And if you try to poke those, limits that you have and the limitations, and start to do something different today, tomorrow, and see what happens when we do this different, and then reap the benefits, then go on, do another experiment and another one and another one, start to do something that you're usually not doing, and stop to do something else, because it's not just about starting to do new things. It's about a little bit trying to stop to do the things that you thought you had to do. And maybe just maybe that the organization will not break down and go bankrupt and disappear overnight if you stop to do that approval flow, or if you remove that policy, or if you suddenly don't do that process anymore,
Yep.
Things might actually come up there or positive from that. So I think people are very, very afraid stop to do things. And that's a big problem.
If I
More
may,
about, just to build on that.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I think the word unlearn is a really big thing in people moving into being agile. It's stop doing things. The processes also applies to growth mindset. It's about unlearning things that you've always done. You always know how to behave in an organization and how to do your job every day. But you have to unlearn some of that thing. That's pretty scary. And you need help with that. You need to be, and that's where the people teaching, I think, does come in. Just to be compassionate and empathetic around people's own mental journey and the fear of unlearning and having to stop doing something. Growing up in a time when we all were right first time, and all of the management training was get it right first time, and you do have to get it right first time in some sectors, in some industries. You hope that a pilot is going to get it right first time, or a surgeon. But in a lot of industries, you don't have to get it right first time. And the whole thing about Agile is about being iterative, trying something that the customer might want, creating a minimum viable product that says it hasn't got all the bells and whistles. Is this what you want? What do you want? How do we build it together? And it's scary for people to unlearn the right first time mantra. And one of the reasons it's scary is back to the way that we incentivize people and the performance models that we have that says you must get it right, otherwise we'll fire you, or we'll warn you, or we'll not pay you as much. So we've really got to think as HR people about how do we enable people to try things to where you can, where you're not a surgeon but where can you try things for the customer without being slapped for disciplined for failing? The whole thing about failing fast is you learn. You're not out there to fail. You want to succeed, but you might fail, and if you do, you're going to learn from that and do something different and not do that again. And it's about creating the right environment to enable people to do that without being disciplined.
Someone else jumps in, just a reminder that if you aren't speaking, to put yourselves on mute. We're having a couple of pieces of feedback around the audio is going in and out again.
Karen, can I just wanted to show this book that I've been using. It's a really good book. We're using it in our class called Strategic Doing. It really, for those of you, it's been phenomenal in terms of basic things you can do that would help right away. So just want to put it out there for people who haven't. I don't own the book. I don't get any royalties. It's really, we're teaching graduate students. It's easy to use, but it has some really, really, really some tools.
Who wrote it?
Sorry, quick, Pia-Maria has to jump in because he had something.
Sorry.
No, thank you. The most important thing that I have discovered in organizational change, and this is my bias because I'm focused on organizational and personal change, is start with the individual. The hardest work is not necessarily organizational agility or even team agility, it begins with you. And Alvin Toffler, the futurist, said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write. It will be the people who can't rapidly learn, unlearn, to Jeanette's point, learn, unlearn, relearn. So I always begin with individuals first. What can you do? And one quick model I found recently came from a researcher, Natalie Fratto, and she was working with startups, and she was talking about adaptability, not, a variation of Agile, and she called it AQ, adaptability quotient. And she said there were three things that all startups did and individuals did consistently that made them very, had a high AQ, adaptability quotient. And that was every day ask millions of what if questions. So look at yourself and just ask, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if I did that? What if I changed? What if or why? Be a 2-year-old. Why? So constantly be more curious about things. As Wayne said, we're all so busy, we never stop to ask. We figure if we ask the what if or why question, it's going to get in the way of the steamroller that keeps moving things around. So one AQ quotient test is how many what if or why questions are you asking every day? The second goes back to what Jeanette said about active unlearning. And the best way to test whether you're actively unlearning is take on new projects, assign yourself or get assigned to new projects where you are scared shitless about, you have no idea, how am I going to do this? Put yourself actively in situations where you have no idea how to do it. That will force you to learn, unlearn, and relearn quickly. And the third thing that Natalie Fratto said, exploration in life and work. As simple as walk a new way to work, get a different kind of coffee every day, meet with a different kind of person than you would normally meet, go someplace that you would never go. Every day, practice exploring something that you would never done before. And as I said, it can be walking that way instead of that way. So those are three things: what ifs, constant curiosity and questions, active unlearning, putting yourself in new situations, and constantly exploring. Three very transactional, basic things you can do to enhance how you become agile.
Love that. Thank you. Pia-Maria, did you want to throw something in there?
Not really, but I can say something. I do that to me. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
It sounds really.
Yeah, we're losing you again, by the way. Well, let me throw this out there then. So I think some of those are some real tangible, helpful tools that people can think about, especially what they can start doing differently. How do you help a company measure that? So, Jeanette, you mentioned you have to be, remove the bonus away from. Can everybody make sure they're muted, by the way? Can you, remove a bonus so that people feel more comfortable failing? What are some other measurements or actions that people can take to help start supporting this culture change?
Well, I think, Jeanette, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm coming off mute. Yeah, and I'm not sure it's about moving the bonus. It's how you can reward from our traditional model. But I do think we have to change the way that we enable environmentally, for example. How do we enable people to work well together? Lots of individual offices does not enable an agile workplace. Because it's about working fast, and it's about being able to talk to each other. And you might, you've got the technology today, but as long as you have technology to be frequently in communication, then it's all about how do we enable that and change our current processes. But, I'm not advocating we move away from, let's say, targets, because businesses are in business for a purpose. So hopefully, it's community-based, and we still have to make you to pay people and to grow your company. So it's just a different way of looking at how we reward collaborative behavior that results in faster products to consumer.
You were asking about some tools, Karen. I don't know, Jeanette, could you mute yourself? Maybe, I don't know if it's your microphone. Okay, you're mute. Good. Okay, do you hear me still?
Sorry, we tested it and it's not this end.
Okay. I wanted to talk about some tools that you can use. There are lots of tools out there to get to know yourself, to get to know other people better, and to understand how sensitive you are, or how you work as a person, right? I'm working with Grease Motivation a lot, which is a tool to understand basic psychological needs. And it helped me a lot in my work, both understanding myself, understanding my team and all my customers, and how they function, and leaders, how they can lead other people. Because with this knowledge about people, you really get very powerful tool to work with, to understand how different people function on a deeper level, and what makes them tick, why they do what they do. So what makes them happy, and if you help people to achieve their life goals, and if they can live their values, and they get their basic needs fulfilled within the organization, then they become very loyal and very, then they think you're the best employer in the world. So that's a very good key to any change, I would say.
What we did in our course, and one of the things we talked about first was, building a culture of experimentation. Because Agile is all about experimenting. You get more data from trying than you get from planning, or better data from trying than actually planning. That's why, strategic planning is a disaster in many companies, because you can't predict things more than a couple of weeks versus, a couple of years. And so Agile focuses on, again, try it, learn from it, and then change and go on. And the very nature that encourages more people to take risks, because you're not going to get it right. You're not expected to get it right. The only way you're going to get it perfect is by getting more data, what isn't working, what is. And so by definition, in an Agile environment, if it's done well and using the principles and practices, that happens. But again, it's a mindset. It's really, it's nice to be able to be an individual contributor or business partner, and you want to do Agile, but you need some support. You just can't kind of go off the deep end. That's why I think you need to kind of demonstrate or show some quick wins that, we have better meetings, we have better products, we're diagnosed this problem more quickly, we have a solution, we have more engaged people, the customer's happier, all those things, and then they're hard to do. You just kind of, we've done case studies in a class and with clients. We just have to look at it differently. Look at it, everybody has a radio station I call WIIFM. What's in it for me? And so you have to understand where the person you want to help and work with is coming from. And then you have to position yourself in a way that you can help them. And again, in the Agile concept, there's many ways you can help most of your leaders who are having some struggles by looking at some small things, breaking a big thing into small pieces, and iteratively improving that. And as you iteratively improve each week, you get support, you get buy-in, like what you're doing, they see results, they get engaged, they say more. So that's how I would, build a experimentation.
Excellent. All right. So we have about 10 minutes left. So what I want to do is actually go around the opposite, introduce ourselves, and give one piece of advice that someone can start doing differently tomorrow, whether that's within their own sphere and how they can start to change how they work in a more agile way, or whether that is how they can influence their organizations to start to shift to a more agile mind shift. So you can choose. Pia-Maria, just going in opposite order, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, okay, so yeah. Well, ask somebody a different question tomorrow, maybe. Could be a thing you could do tomorrow. Ask somebody a different question that could lead to something, that could lead to some learning of some kind. That's my tip. Short.
Nothing wrong with short. Bill, you're up next.
Thank you, Karen. I'll try and squeeze in 2 quick tips for everybody. These start personal, not necessarily organizational or team. Everybody, please remember the number 1,440. 1440. It's the most important number in business that nobody ever talks about. And why is it so crucial? It is the number of minutes in a day. And your most important asset that you have to bring to bear to anything is your time and attention. And no one gets 1441. So what you're all going to have to focus on is JOMO versus FOMO. FOMO is the fear of missing out. We need to move towards the joy of missing out and not stop going to stupid meetings, start deleting emails. The only way you can contribute in an agile environment is maximizing your time. And there are too many things stealing your time right now. So that was number 1, 1440. The second, an exercise I do with leaders all across the world, is I ask them one question. What do you want your legacy to be? And your legacy is your impact on others. It's not my product. It's not my service. It's not my values. It's the impact that I have on others. And if you do that exercise, what do I want my legacy to be within a short term, let's say 3 years, 2023? If you can articulate that, you will bring that, you will force agileness on yourself because it will get rid of the clutter. It'll focus you on the most important things. And I guarantee most of you will come up with something that's people focused. So it will force everything that the rest of the panel has said. It will force that discipline on you. 1440, what's your legacy?
Love it. Thank you. Going through this, and if we have time, Brian, we'll get to your question, but we're going to keep going through this first, but stay tuned. Jeanette, what's your advice to someone they can change starting tomorrow?
Well, a couple of things I'd say. One of the things that resonates always with me is the statement, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. So a little bit like Bill, how are you treating people through what is a massive change in the world? And the digital transformation in the world is huge, and so many people are really terrified that they can't keep up with it, and that they're, so a thing that we could really do differently is ask somebody, are you okay? Really ask them, look at them, listen to them. Are you okay? Just ask that question, and it's amazing how many people open up about why they are not okay in their current workplace or whatever. So ask that question. But also, if we can recognize that, and again, another quotation, the purpose of a boat is not to stay in the harbor. It is choppy water. And when you go on this adventure, this agile adventure, it is tough. A lot of people will not like it. If you can get through it and you can support people through it and coach people through it and provide all of the support structure and network that people need, and be compassionate, then it's you get to that paradise island eventually, and then it gets choppy again, and you get to the next island and it'll get choppy again. But carry on, but be compassionate in everything that you do.
Thank you. I love that. And Wayne, rounding it out, what advice can people do differently tomorrow?
I would say one of the things this book talks about is just getting started. That typically in HR, we'll get together, we'll plan, we'll spend many hours planning and getting it right, and then we'll try it, and then disaster strikes. So I would take a few things you've learned today, whether it's meetings, whether it's 1440 or whatever things you've learned, and try to implement them. in a simple way. Again, when you're trying to implement something and you're looking at it as like a pilot project, it's less fear of it failing because it's a pilot and everybody knows you're experimenting. And I think the key is just kind of get started and try, because you can do it. You have the energy, I think, the passion. You've been frustrated, but I think just taking some pieces and starting and learning and growing and implementing, I think you'll be fine.
Excellent. So we do have a couple minutes left. What I want to throw out there is that I think, to echo everybody's point, is just to try something different. The whole of a more agile mindset is to try something, learn from it, get some feedback, learn from it, and try again. So yes, you can absolutely be, you can wait to get it perfect, but there is no such thing as perfection, and you would have lost so much time with the potential to learn. So get outside your comfort zone, think about the way you can have the biggest impact, and just try something, and that trying something will really start you down a new path. So the HR person on the panel has to respond to one question that came up around how you can ask the thoughtful, "Are you okay?" question without getting into Dr. Phil territory. I actually had to coach managers on this a lot many years ago with a lot of new managers. And I think really the goal is just to be empathetic and to show that you're listening. Of course, if it starts to get down a path that you are not comfortable going down, you can say, I understand you're going through some tough stuff right now. I don't know if I'm the best person to talk to about this. Let me introduce you to someone who can. But starting with the question of, are you okay? What's going on for you? Is just showing that you're empathetic and listening. It doesn't have to go down the therapy route, nor should it. So just wanted to throw out my 2 cents on that. So with a couple minutes left, I thought Brian had a really great question. Everybody has great questions. I just happened to see this one. What's one of the major areas of resistance to adopting agile approaches in HR? So we only have 4 minutes, but do a couple people have maybe one thing they really see people struggle, or a theme that tends to come through the work that you do with your clients? I see a lot of nodding heads. Pia-Maria, I'm going to make you go first.
Yeah, the problem is maybe that HR thinks they know HR, and the biggest resistance maybe is to involve others in their work, and to take help and to take feedback from the organization, from managers and employees. It's something that they are not used to do, because then they are seen as not knowing their work, right? If I ask for help, then it's a proof that I don't know how to do HR. And actually, that's the case. They don't know how to do Agile HR yet, and they need to learn that. So that's one of the areas. I will save some for the others.
That's great. Bill, I think
Okay, I'm going to...
If you want to change HR, think of the TV show Undercover Boss. You should not be in HR unless you have done someone else's job. So the first thing you should do is go do your client, whoever they are, shop floor, mid-manager, whatever they are, do their job for a day. And that will force you to be empathetic and really understand what they're going through. It's amazing how it works. That's why the TV show Undercover Boss works.
It's just the way of doing things is different. Agile, so we don't plan the same way, we don't meet the same way, we don't look at projects the same way. We do everything in short incremental components, and then we build it to scale. And so that's a big change for people who are used to kind of planning meetings and things like that. And so there's politics involved. Obviously, there's risks. An HR leader going to start on a agile journey here. It's going to cost money. You may not have. Initially, it's going to be very messy. When you first start in agile, there's a learning. You're not going to get it right. You're going to get a lot of people saying, there's some problems. And then as you change, you're going to get people resist change because they don't want to do that. And so, not to discourage you, but to be aware of it. That's why I think pilot projects, where you learn the skills, you get your confidence is the most important thing. And so that's how I would address those resistance points.
Excellent. Jeanette, 1 minute left. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say that I think that the fear of the unknown may prevent some HR people from taking on Agile. And it might not be Agile that works for your organization. It's future ways of working. It's what suits you. So it's about business agility rather than the capital A. Capital A may work for some organizations. A smaller A may work for some. But I think just the making people aware of what an incredible and successful and empowering way of working Agile can be, then might make HR people a bit more open to trying it out. And I think having an Agile coach, I hire Agile coaches, I've developed Agile coaches. They are the most amazing phenomenon that you can surround yourself with. They're fabulous. They help, they support, and they point out the blind spots, and that's why anyone should have a coach.
Wonderful. With that, it is 4 o'clock on the East Coast, which is what my clock is set to. So thank you so much for everybody. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, participants. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We're happy to keep the conversation going. Thank you again. Have a great session, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Karen.